Oh, all right, great. We're live. Fantastic. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks for doing this presentation for us, by the way. So tonight, for misec, we will be doing a presentation based on the Beginner's Guide to OSINT with Siobhan. This will be hosted by misec Greater Lansing Chapter. Tonight, what to go over is like misec, where our mission is focused on continued professional and personal developments of people in Michigan's IT and IT security community. If anyone's interested, put it in the chat and we'll look at what we can do for you. Our presenter tonight, her name is Siobhan, and what we will learn from Siobhan is beginner OSINT. But to go over who she is first, she's a senior information security analyst in higher ed. She graduated of Champlain College in Vermont. She's a mom to a human and some dogs, and she likes pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, which is amazing. For those interested in connecting with Siobhan, you can connect with her through LinkedIn or through Twitter. And for Twitter, just remember it's at secure_coffee. So let's see. Now, without further ado, what we will do is we will introduce Siobhan, and we will try to get rid of that screen. I'll remove my screen and add your screen to the event. If you'd like to, take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully everybody likes what I've got to say. So today I want to talk about how to get started with OSINT at a really basic level. I've been doing OSINT research for years in various ways for various reasons. I started out while I was working in sales. I learned how to research leads so that I could create targeted sales pitches for them by incorporating things that were important to them. I found these things by using open source intelligence or OSINT resources to research the business and key decision makers. I was looking for things like how much money did the company make last year? How many employees did they have? What technologies do they have? When I was researching the decision makers, I was looking for ways to open conversations. What did they like? What were they more likely to listen to? How could I connect to them on a personal level? So things like their favorite sports teams, did they have a pet? What were their hobbies? Anything I could use to form a personal connection and build trust with the customer to help build the bridge to the sale. The skills that I learned researching sales leads have translated into my security work really well. So OSINT's a really broad topic, so I'm going to narrow it down for today's talk. It's not limited to what we discuss, and there are lots of different ways to use OSINT data and perform OSINT research. These are tools and techniques that I started out with when researching people and businesses, and it's my hope that by the end of our time today, you're more comfortable with the concept of OSINT or OSINT research. There are lots of really great ways to use this skill, and it can be a lot of fun. Please don't use any of the information that I share today to do illegal things. So first, a little bit about me. When I'm not working, my favorite hobby is OSINT. I am a mom to a little boy who is always keeping me busy. The 3 dogs you see here are my home office coworkers. This is Thor, Lucy, and Sky. They don't seem to get much work done, but they are very cute. And I really enjoy true crime documentaries, like 48 Hours, because the body language of the people as they're interviewed is really fascinating. So if you're interested in learning about human behavior, I highly recommend those shows just for entertainment. It's really interesting to see how people react to different questions as the police officers interrogate them. When I first started with OSINT, I really had no idea what it was. I was just kind of doing my job of being a good salesperson. It wasn't until DEF CON 23 that I saw the social engineering village, and I realized that these are skills that I have. These are things that I do every day, trying to get people to click on links or give me information about their business. And I was really impressed and surprised that that was, a thing that was at DEF CON. But it wasn't really until 2019, I think, at the Layer 8 conference in Rhode Island that I really realized what I could do with the skills and how to apply them. They had a Trace Labs CTF, and I did it with a friend of mine. And from there, I was just hooked. I learned through my experiences in IT that my sales knowledge was going to be really helpful and translated really well. Things from taking a consultative approach with securing customer products to helping with user awareness, which is really important to help people understand the types of threats their personal information could leave them vulnerable to. So a lot of the skills I learned in sales did translate really, really well into IT. So for our first topic, I want to talk about what OSINT is really quick. I'm sorry, my dog keeps chewing my chair. The term open source intelligence, or OSINT, describes a type of information and how it is used. It's basically any type of information that's available to the public, even if it's behind a paywall, that's used for intelligence, research, or recon. How that information is used can really vary vastly. It's used by journalists, it's used by legal professionals, security professionals, librarians, and so many more. It's very, very broad. OSINT research is a great skill to grow, and it's great to add to your security team's techniques. We all use OSINT type data every day, from personal things like looking up a phone number, finding an address. In our jobs, we might look where a potentially malicious IP comes from, or we might look up a file hash or a system in Shodan, or perhaps you research APT behavior. All of that data is open source OSINT type data. This graphic is the OSINT landscape, and it's created by High-Sutton and Bellingcat, which are really great resources for OSINT information. The graphic is really busy, but I like it because it breaks down the different types of OSINT information, like social media, geospatial data, commercial registrations, and more. And it kind of gives you an idea of where you might find different types of data. So how could you use OSINT? So the mindset and skills we use to research threats in our environment are really similar to the skills used to find people. I really enjoy researching and digging into the fine details of a problem. And if that sounds like you, you will probably also really enjoy OSINT. There's tons of information available out there about people, what they like, where they live, what their habits are, and so much more. Most people in security are familiar with the reasons we should keep our personal data private, but unfortunately the average user is not, and they leave a heavy digital trail scattered with information. Discussing with your end users or your clients how this information could be used by malicious actors can help protect them as well as the company, by making them aware of the concepts of targeted spear phishing attacks or other social engineering attacks where personal information could be used to manipulate them. There is a really good scene in Mr. Robot where Elliot, the main character, is trying to gain access to a target's account. He looks at their social media account for words that can be used in a dictionary attack to crack the target's password. From their social media account, he's able to gain information like their favorite sports teams, their addresses, their pets' names, and so on. And he uses that in a dictionary attack to get into their personal information at work. There have been a few times in my professional life where I've used OSINT as well to track back external malicious email or a bad username. And personally, I like to participate in OSINT Capture the Flag events, or CTFs, where you search for missing people to gain points or flags and compete against other people to get the most points. They can be really challenging, and they're a lot of fun. One of the hardest things to do when you're doing an OSINT investigation is to stay organized. There's a ton of information out there, and it gets really hard to keep it all organized as you're moving through an investigation. I like to think about the type of person that I'm looking for and where I might look to find that person. So generally I'm looking at things like public records, social media, and just a generic web search just to see what's on major search engines. Because the majority of the internet is inaccessible for major search engines, I do occasionally look on the deep or the dark web. It just depends on what kind of target I'm looking for and where I think I might most likely find them. And that's how you get started. Social media is generally a really good place to start your search because most people have some kind of social media presence. I've had a lot of luck finding information on social media that gives me other places to branch off into. Once I was working on a CTF for a missing child, and I was able to pivot off of a family member's Facebook account to get a potential lead on where they were. How I did that was through a Google search. The young girl's name and location was all I put in there, and it came back with her grandfather's obituary. Obituaries often list the first and last names of family members, and really often with locations too, which is great. I took those names and searched them on social media until I found her sister's Facebook account. On her sister's account, there was a recent picture of her sister with a boy. I dug into the boy's account and was able to see that the missing girl had recently been with him, and I was able to submit that information in the investigation package. One of the ways that I like to map out an investigation is with mind mapping. It's also really great for any really large project that you have if you need to organize your thoughts. It helps to have one place to throw all of your ideas and link them together visually. It works really well for OSINT, and it's a great tool for beginners. It'll help you stay on track as you move through a CTF so that you don't miss any flags. This mind map is created by a member of the OSINT community for Xmind, which does have a free version. It's really thorough and it's very easy to use. I like it because it has built-in tool links in the map, and you can customize them to meet your needs. If I'm doing a longer investigation, I like to organize my Trello board to look something like this. Inside each card, I can attach artifacts, or if they're of an extremely sensitive nature, then I just make a note of where I've stored them. It's important to track your work for many reasons. The biggest is that it's helpful when handing this off to investigation organizers. They need a clear understanding of what you're giving them and how you found it. This way it can be included in the investigation package and handed over to the authorities. It doesn't really matter if you're investigating a missing person for a CTF or if you're investigating the sender of a malicious email at your job. In both cases, they're going to want to know how you came to your conclusion with details. And if the information is for a CTF, you need to provide that information in order to get your points. If you're doing a really simple investigation, like for a CTF, or if those tools feel overwhelming, an Excel spreadsheet is great. It keeps the information organized, it's easy to read. I like to place a title at the top with the name of the missing person or the username that I'm looking for. Any additional details that I might have, I put up there too so that I can reference them very easily. And then I separate out columns to list what I found and then the documentation to support it. Also, never underestimate the usefulness of a really good bound notebook for jotting notes down real quick as you move along. It's important to take little notes as you're moving along so you remember why you did what you did. So when it comes to tools and resources, there are a ton of really great resources available for free to help with investigations. I'm going to share a few things I used when I got started that I still use almost every time. While using tools can be controversial in OSINT research because tools sometimes break or go away, I personally find it's a great way to get started and familiar with the different types of information out there. To me, it's a little less overwhelming when a tool like SpiderFoot can do a quick scan and provide you some starting points. It is important to have a backup plan in case something fails, and for that, I'll talk a little bit about Google dorking. So this is the OSINT framework. It's one of the very first resources I started using when I started doing OSINT to find people. It's a really great place to start, and it's got a really comprehensive list of sites. As you open the topics, you'll find links to websites where you can run searches on different types of artifacts to see additional data about them. People often use the same or similar usernames across multiple platforms, so this resource can come in handy if you hit a dead end or if you just don't know where to start. In one of the missing children cases I worked on as part of a CTF, their Facebook account was really locked down, so I couldn't see what they had posted. And this is becoming more and more common with younger people as they move away from Facebook in favor of other social media sites. I was able to find their Instagram account by using a name search site to search their username to see if it existed anywhere else. It's a link off of the OSINT framework. Their Instagram account was public and more recently active, which led to a new list of friends and associations I was able to include in the investigation. So I'm going to show you a little demo of the framework. when you come in, this is what it looks like. It's just got a bunch of little dots over on the left-hand side. And as you open things, it'll show you more options. So if you wanted to look up a username, you can come down here to specific sites, and there's a couple of them here, Amazon and Tinder and Keybase. Or you can use a username search engine. I like Namecheck. They're really all pretty good. It works just like Google. You just literally type in what you're looking for, hit enter, and it loads. Down at the bottom here, it'll give you a list. Based on the colors, it tells you whether or not that account is available, or if it's, the username is invalid for a specific website, just means the format can't be used on that site. If it's available, you will get a green, and if it is in use, you will get I'm trying to get it to pop up. There we go. You'll get a gray. And if you click on one of the grays, it will link you to what it believes is that account. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You got to get a little bit more creative with it. If you see red, it just means that there's something wrong with the link on that site. Back at the OSINT framework, there's also ways to look up email addresses. And I want to mention one specifically. That's Them is a really, really good resource. And if you have an email address for someone and it's associated with a physical address, it will actually come back with their physical address here as well, which is really nice. It's really thorough, so I strongly recommend that if you're looking for people. Common email formats is another one that I use pretty often. Let's see, this one here. It gives you a list of domains, and you can search by the domains, and it'll give you an idea of what someone's email address might be there. And then these scores are put in by people who have verified it. So this says this is a score of 17. You can add more scores to it if you know that it's real. And this gives you the format. So you've got their username at telegram.org. And that's helpful if you're looking for businesses. If you're trying to figure out where someone works to find their email address, you might know that, maybe it's, first name dot last name, or, a truncated last name with an initial or something like that, but you don't know if it's at telegram.org or something else. And this will help you figure that out. Another one that's worth mentioning is Intellex. You can enter a domain, a URL, a CIDR, an IP, a Bitcoin address, tons of information in here, and this will pull back whatever it's got about it. Any kind of breach that it's been included in, it will pull back as well, which is really helpful if you're looking for passwords, which can be used to hand into law enforcement, not to log into the account, but to hand into law enforcement, so that they can log in and look at the account if they need to. Something worth noting is alternative social medias. There are other social medias in other countries that aren't as commonly used in the United States. So if you're doing an investigation for someone who lives in another country, you want to think about what social media is available in that country and whether or not they might be of an age range to use it. And then sometimes if you're doing an investigation of someone in the United States, they also have foreign social media sites. So that's another resource to look at as well. Something that I use pretty often is the public records links here. And I really like NETR online. You can search by state and you can get all kinds of information about properties, about people, marriage records, birth records, all of that stuff. And if you dig a little bit, you can also find arrest records. Down at the bottom here in tools is a link to virtual machines. And I mention that now because we're going to talk about virtual machines in a little while. And I'm going to reference this again. There are links here to different virtual machines that you can download and run your searches from. Buscador is no longer supported, so I would not recommend running Buscador. But if you go to Trace Labs, they have a really great OSINT VM that I would recommend. And then if you go down here into training, there are games. And one of my favorite games is GeoGuessr. If you're trying to get better about finding locations by picture, I would strongly recommend checking this out. It's really cool. It's a ton of fun. And it'll help build that skill for you. And I know for myself, I'm trying to build that skill. So the next tool I want to talk about is SpiderFoot. It's a really cool tool. It has quite a few capabilities. I'm going to show you how I use it for investigations. There are 2 versions that are free. There's a cloud-hosted edition that has some limitations on the number of searches and the duration of searches you can run. And there's an open source downloadable version. It doesn't have any limits on search durations or how many you can run, but it does require more maintenance because it's something that's installed on your machine. I generally like the web-based because it's just less work for me to deal with. If you want to use all the features, they do have pay plans, but unless you're incorporating OSINT into your security program, the open source or hobby license will do what you need it to do. SpiderFoot. So when you log into SpiderFoot, this is the page that you come to, and you can see that I've already run a search here. We're going to run another one just so you can see how it's done. There's a lot of options up across the top. The only option that works on the hobby plan is scan, investigate, monitor, and configure do not work. And then if you look over and where your account information is, you will see API key. If you have the hobby license, you can't tie in any APIs either. So if you want a more in-depth search, or if you're doing this for a more professional reason, you may want to actually buy the licensed version so that you can tie in the API keys. If you want to run a search, you just hit new scan. Name your scan, put your scan target in. Now your scan target can be an IP address, it can be a domain, it can be an email address, it can be a human name. So I could actually type my actual name in there and see what comes back as well. There's iteration options here. There's modules, which you can't really add any modules, but you can turn modules off. And if you're going to scan a domain, you probably do want to come in here and find the things that are a little bit louder so that you don't get knocked and blocked from the domain. There are some options down here as well. I like to leave the email notification on, although the scan is usually pretty quick when I'm only doing one email address. That way I can walk away and come back later. So I've run this scan, so I'll open the scan that I've run before. Once your scan is done, it gives you a cute little bar chart down here at the bottom, gives you the top sources that it was found, top 5 data families. There's a visualization that you can do called a node graph. And the visualization on this is really cool if you're going to put together a report for anything, for maybe for yourself, maybe for your executive leadership. We know that people in C-level, they love graphics. So this is a really nice graphic that shows how all of the accounts are linked together. And then back in the overview section, if you click on account on external site, it'll give you a list of sites that it found that username on. Now, here's where you have to be careful and kind of be a little bit more investigative. Just because that username came back on a website as active does not mean it is tied to the username, to the user that you are looking for. So you have to think about who the person is, where they might be involved, and kind of make a decision as to whether or not you think that this might be their account or not. And sometimes you have to go to the site, check it out, and see if what's on the site falls within the range of what you're looking for before you can determine whether or not it actually belongs to them. But again, just because it's there doesn't mean it's theirs. So you want to be careful with that. This is not going to give you all the answers, but it's going to give you a good place to start. So Google dorking. It's really important to have a backup plan, and Google dorking is also just super fun to do. Sometimes when I get bored, I'll dork for S3 buckets and just see what I can find. You can dork through GitHub and look for API keys and fun things like that. Google dorking is a great place to get started if you're doing, if you're interested in bug bounties as well. So I'll show you a little bit of Google dorking. So I wrote them down in GitHub so that I can just copy and paste them because I think that's easier. So what you can see here is that this is saying I'm looking for a very specific site, twitter.com, and in the text, I'm looking for malware. You can use Boolean logic with a Google dork, and don't get too caught up in Boolean logic. It's and or not. It's not hard. And the word exchange, and I can search for that. Well, let's just do this one first. And it will come back with everything that's in the quote. Let's see if I can get. There we go. Syntax is important. So this comes back with text, in-text malware and exchange. So this will come back with information that's on Twitter, that's a public tweet that contains the word malware and exchange. Pretty simple, right? So if I'm looking for maybe new exploits, I can use this to search Twitter. Another one that you can use is site and then a username. And that comes back, first result is my username and my Twitter account. This one is cool. You can look for things that are inside of a URL. So this is looking for the words live view inside a URL, which is going to give us cameras. But if you wanted to look for other things inside the URL, you could do that as well. I am having an issue reaching exploitdb.com right now, but this is a really great site. Let me see if I can Google it so I can just give you the. This is the Google hacking database. I don't think it's going to load for me right now. Yeah, no. But this has a really big list of Google dorks on it. And if you're looking to get started in Google dorking, it's a great place to kind of browse through and see what's there. Throw some stuff in Google and see what comes back to you. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, the faster it'll be, the easier it'll be. And it's definitely something that I recommend. There have been situations where I've gone to go do a CTF and my laptop has died, or I haven't had access to my laptop for one reason or another because it decides to do an update in the middle of the CTF. And you can actually do Google Dorks directly from your cell phone. So you're not out of the game, even if you don't have a computer. You can still Google Dork from your phone and get a couple of flags that way too, which is helpful. So some of the other tools that I use pretty frequently are the Wayback Machine and Google Cache. I've run into several cases where a tweet or an account was deleted that I wanted to pull back for one reason or another. And a lot of people think when you delete things from the internet, they're gone. And the reality of it is the Wayback Machine and Google Cache are pretty quick. And unless it's only been up for a very short amount of time, chances are one of them has scanned it, or another service similar to them has scanned it and has it somewhere saved. So let me show you the Wayback Machine. That's over here. When you first log into the Wayback Machine, you're going to type in your website. Now, not all main sites are scanned. So in this case, my main page, Secure Coffee, is not scanned, but there are archive pages under that. And I've already preloaded everything because the site does take a little bit of time to load. Here you've got every tweet I have sent. I sent a lot of tweets, and the date and the number. And when you click on one, it'll open up this really cool little calendar and it'll show you when the last time it was scanned was. So this one was scanned, the last time was March 15th at 23:48. And if I click it, it'll pop up on another page like this. And this shows this is the last time that this particular page was scanned. This is what I'm looking at. There's only one capture for it. And then this is my dog Sky after she had her spay. She has the cone of shame. Google Cache is really cool because you can see my page today, and it has misec presentation for tonight is right here. If you were to look at the cached page, you could get an older view of what my Twitter site looked like. And it's really easy to do. You just literally copy the URL, paste it into Google, search it, and you'll get these 3 little dots on the side here. You click them, you hit cached. It gives you the cached page. And this tells you this is what used to be on my page when I first logged in, which is my very horrible GitHub with all of my OSINT sites on it. If you go up to the top, you can see view source, and it'll give you the date that it was cached. So this was cached on May 1st. And then you can actually search in here if you want to get more information. This is easier to search than trying to search an entire Twitter page. So if I was going to look for a specific word, I can just search the text. So 2 of the other tools that I want to show you are called the Visualized, and it's a tool specifically for Twitter, and then TickBuddy. TikTok is becoming a more prevalent form of social media for younger generations. And when you're looking for kids, you want to look where they're going to be. And a lot of them are going to be on TikTok. And it's very challenging because of the type of tool it is. So I'll show you TickBuddy in a second. First, I'm going to show you the Visualized. This is the Visualized, and it's actually to track and explore trends on social media, but it can be used for OSINT. So if you look at the main page here, it just gives you kind of like, these are what's trending. The Ellen Show is trending, SoundCloud is trending, something about Twitter. If you go up to, there we go, lost my mouse, timeline, and you type in the account that you're looking for, and you spell it correctly. There we go. You can see all of my tweets over here on the right. You can see when I most often tweet. Apparently I tweeted a lot that day. When I've been retweeted is there, how many tweets, how many likes, how many retweets, how many followers, how many I'm following. The most commonly mentioned profiles are down here. So these might be people that I might interact with. So you could look for interaction between other people to get kind of an idea about where I might be geographically, or who I might be friends with, or the type of things that I might be interested in. You can see here, there's Whistle Pig Rye. Down at the bottom are the most common hashtags that I've used recently. And so you can get an idea of the different types of things that I might be interested in. Like Together We Go Far is a Peloton hashtag. So if you know that, if you search that, you could say, oh, well, maybe she has Peloton, and you can look at Peloton accounts and see if I've got one there too. And that might give you more information about me. And then there are other people down here that are similar to me. All of this information can be exported, so you can put it right into a report. And again, it's got really great graphics, so it makes a really great executive report. So TickBuddy is actually made for TikTok creators to help them kind of curate their content, but you can use it to search for creators. For example, you can come in here and do an advanced search, and you can look for categories, or you can look for their TickBuddy score, how many fans they have, how many likes they have. I can search by regions, or I can just type in Kevin Hart and pull him back eventually. There we go. So on the first page here, it just kind of gives you a little bit of information about the account. When I click into it, it's going to give me metrics and videos. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. It's going to give me metrics, tell me how often he's ranking, tell me how his fans are trending. It gives me information about how many videos he's posted, and then I can actually look at the video analytics and see when he's posted. I can look for keywords about the videos. Maybe I'm looking for something specific, and I can search that here. And I can see all the comments and likes and information about that video right here from TickBuddy. So if I'm looking at a kid's account and I want to find out, when was the last time they played baseball, I could search baseball and see if they put any pictures about baseball on there. So it gives you insight into TikTok that's a little bit more robust than just using the app, and it allows you to be able to search, which is really, really helpful. So one of the most important things to remember when you're looking for people is that you want to make sure you're insulating yourself and protecting yourself from the person that you're looking for, and then also maybe from the people that might have the person you're looking for. In the case of a malicious email user, you already know that the person is bad, but if you're dealing with a missing child, you don't know if they're a runaway or if they've been kidnapped or if they're in a bad situation. So you want to make sure that you insulate yourself from that. It's really important to make sure that you stay safe. And two of the things that I would recommend to keep yourself safe is a virtual machine or a VM and using a VPN. You can roll your own VPN if you want. I use Proton. I know a few researchers that use Brave, Nord, and PIA. The most important part is to make sure that you're using a legitimate VPN and not just like an ad blocker. Whatever you use, it is a best practice to try and attempt to connect from the area that your target is in. Sometimes you can't do that because the connections in the area don't allow connections to social media sites. I've run into that a couple of times. In those cases, you could use a proxy or you can just connect from another location. It's a best practice not to mix your personal internet connection with your investigation to protect yourself. It is also a best practice to use a dedicated machine that you don't use for your personal or work use. This can be a really big barrier for a lot of people when competing in a CTF. I've always just used a really well isolated VM because an extra machine is just not within my reach. I just can't afford it. I use a Mac, so I use VMware Fusion. VirtualBox is also fine. There is a link in the framework to a few different flavors of Linux that you can use for your VM. Anyone you're comfortable with is fine. It doesn't matter what version of Linux you want to use. Some versions of Linux do have preloaded tools like Kali or the Tracelabs one, but you can literally use whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with and you can install your tools into. Linux does have a graphical user interface, a GUI. So if you've never used it before, it's not hard to start using it. You don't need to be a command line wizard to use Linux. So please don't let that stop you from trying because Linux sounds intimidating. Yes, the command line offers more flexibility and richness, but it's more important to just get started than to feel like you have to be a master at something. You can learn as you go along. When I do OSINT at work, I do use a dedicated workstation for investigations. I never use my work laptop or even a VM because I want to make sure that, because I'm doing it for legal purposes, is not a tainted investigation. Using a VM at a minimum will ensure that your personal social media information and your browser information isn't going to spill into your investigation. And as a note, if you're going to do any kind of Tor or dark web work, it is generally advised that you use a separate laptop. Another thing that I would recommend to keep yourself safe is sock puppets. It's really important to protect your personal identity by not using any personal social media accounts to search for people. You never know who you're going to run across while you're performing research, and you probably don't want them to know who you are. Additionally, your personal data can impact your algorithms. For example, if you search someone on Facebook and then you look at their profile, it's going to suggest you as a friend to that person, which is not what you want to happen if you're doing an investigation. A sock puppet account is a fake identity used for recon. And you're going to want to create them if you're going to do OSINT research on social media accounts. So how do you create a sock puppet safely? You create a sock puppet, commonly also referred to as SOC. You should do it in an isolated system like a VM. ideally behind a VM. Now, some social media sites won't allow you to build one behind a VPN. There's a few ways around it. One is a burner cell for verification. A burner cell is a throwaway cell phone and number that does not register back to you. You can also use a proxy service that tricks the site into thinking that you're connecting from a home location. In the past, I've used public Wi-Fi to set up a SOC account as well. For a CTF, you don't have to be quite as rigorous. I have, in a pinch, set them up from my home Wi-Fi, but you don't want to use your CTF SOCs for an actual investigation. And if you're doing an actual investigation, please do it the right way. Because I'm doing an investigation and I'm not doing long-term recon, I don't usually put a ton of effort into making my SOCs. I'm not trying to infiltrate a group or target accounts. I just want to look at them safely. So you don't need a whole bunch of friends or a whole bunch of posts to make your SOC look convincing unless you really want to put that kind of time into it. You just need to put enough into it to keep it from getting shut off. You'll need to generate a name and a picture for your profile. A commonly used site to do that is thispersondoesnotexist.com. If you do that, you want to make sure that you edit the picture because a lot of the sites like Facebook are getting really wise to those pictures and can detect that they're fakes. So you want to make sure you fiddle with them a little bit to make them look a little bit different so that they get accepted by the filters. You can just make up a name if you want to, or you can use a fake name generator. You want to make sure whatever name you pick doesn't trace back to you. So don't use your dog's name, don't use your kid's name, don't use your best friend's name. Make sure it's just like some random made up name that you have no association with. Keeping your SOCs alive and organized can be really challenging. I keep my SOCs organized in an Excel spreadsheet. Some people use CRMs to manage them. However you manage them, just make sure you keep them someplace you won't lose them. And I like to log into them from time to time and post here and there to keep them alive. I use my burner phone to access my SOC accounts. You should never log into your own accounts on the device you use to manage your SOCs. If you log into your personal accounts on your burner, it's no longer a burner and you have now tainted all your SOCs and need to burn them. You should not be friends with your SOC and your SOCs should not be friends with each other. The best way to make friends for your SOC is to follow some obvious accounts and groups. When you create a social media account, they usually recommend a bunch of things to follow. Follow those things. Political accounts, actors, sports professionals, things like that. They're really great choices. And think about who your SOC is. If my SOC is, maybe a 19-year-old girl or woman, I might follow BTS. But maybe I wouldn't if I was a 60-year-old man. Maybe I would follow something a little bit more appropriate for that particular person. So think about who you're targeting with your SOC when you create it and what types of things that person might be interested in. So these are some really great resources that I reference all the time to learn new skills. OSINT is really fast growing and constantly developing field. There are tons of articles and guides out there and many, many different ways to do things. Everyone learns at their own pace and everyone learns differently. So there really is something out there for everyone if you want to get if you're interested in OSINT and you want to get into it. So I know this seems like a lot of information. Please don't let it overwhelm you. You can get started with OSINT if you can Google. It's not that challenging. And while I've been researching people and companies and other entities using OSINT research for years, I only learned OSINT and social engineering were a real thing a few years ago at DEF CON. And the first time I participated in an OSINT CTF was about 2 years ago. So I haven't been looking for people on purpose for very long. Since then, I've competed in several CTFs and I've consulted on cases related to domestic violence and revenge pornography. None of it is terribly complicated. It's a great skill to grow and it translates really well into your day job if you want to start using OSINT as part of your security program. The hardest part about it is staying organized through the investigation because the information out there is so vast. Using some of the tools that I shared today, I hope will help you succeed in getting involved. And I would recommend to anybody to go out there and sign up for CTFs, try them out. It doesn't matter if you place last or if you place 10th or if you place first. It really doesn't. It's all about getting out there, learning how to do it, identifying your skills gaps, and learning how to grow that. And the more you practice it, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. Don't let things intimidate you so much, because it's not that hard to get started. So thank you all so much for letting me share this information with you. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that it helped take some of the intimidation out of OSINT research. If you would like, you can follow me on Twitter, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
All right. Awesome. That is fantastic. So first, I'd like to thank you for doing this presentation. That was an amazing presentation. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a ton. And I just wanted to tell everyone, please make sure to follow secure_coffee. You gotta follow Siobhan on this stuff. And she's also she's provided her LinkedIn information as well. And yeah, thank you very much for being a presenter for today. And I don't have any comments in the YouTube channel yet. However, I do have a ton of questions myself. So for example, you provided a lot of information with a lot of really cool things. I wasn't I'm not as aware of OSINT frameworks, and that was incredible. And then there was a bunch of other information you provided too, like in different ways to kind of do learning opportunities with OSINT. So I was wondering, looking at that going forward, are those links that you could share with me, or so that I can later put to the video and put in the kind of notification part of the video, and then also share with teams in parts of misec?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. And so I'm thinking about okay, so OSINT is amazing. It's really powerful, and it's got a lot of application use for it, and it's really cool. But I'm thinking about how do you bring, let's say you have a team that might be a little bit more resistant to bringing OSINT to the security team, because they might think of it as, because it's more personalized. They might think of it as more kind of creepy, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a resistant group, how would you approach that resistant party to kind of say, hey, this is why it's valuable?
So I think it depends on what you're using it for. So in your SOC, you're probably doing maybe, hopefully, threat hunting and APT research, and kind of figuring out who might be targeting your organization. How do we defend against that? And so that's one way to use OSINT. If you want to start tracking back people who send malicious emails, there are some people who send them that are very smart, that cover their tracks, and you're not going to find them. But then there are some people who are not very smart and use the same username on their Proton email as their Facebook page, and they're very easy to find. And in those cases, for me, it's when your user contacts you, or in my case, a customer contacts me, and they're getting terrible hate mail about them and their children, and it's threatening and violent and it's scary. I can at least say, I think I know who it is. I'm passing this on to the police. And it's something that I can do to help them feel a little bit safer. And that's kind of our job in security, is making sure that the data is safe and making sure that our users know that we're going to help protect their digital stuff as much as we can. Right.
Now I'm thinking about, okay, so OSINT, like I said, is very practical and very applicable. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm coming at it from a perspective of, I've never really gone deep into OSINT. I've done small amounts, but what you're doing, and I love how this is considered beginners, because for me, I'm just holy shit. This is fantastic. I'm definitely looking at this going, I got a project to do. But I'm thinking of it, so having this strength, pretty much this power, right, that other people might consider more intimidating to try. Does anyone ever try to approach you and say, hey, can you do this malicious use of OSINT for me?
Oh, yes.
That's what I figured. Okay. Can you provide an example?
Tell me who my wife is following. Tell me what accounts she likes. All the time. And I try not to get involved in that kind of stuff. And then I do get people who are like, my nephew is missing. Can you see if you can find them? And when I was really new in OSINT, I tried my hand at a couple. I had a cousin who went missing, and I tried to track her social media account. And ultimately I decided that if it's a personal family issue, then I don't necessarily mind helping out a little bit. But if it's, someone's cousin or something like that, the best thing that I can do is refer them to Trace Labs or to another professional organization to help them, because I just don't have the bandwidth to do it by myself. And these organizations have so much so many more people and so much more resources. I'm selling them short, honestly, by taking it on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's also really, I would always, it's always hard to find the boundaries too, because you did say the bandwidth was just completely correct, but like I'm thinking too, like, you know, like you said, like, who's my wife following, you know? And it's like, oh, this is, yeah, no, man, this is your job. Like,
yeah.
So one thing I think of is like when I think of like the organizations like Hacking is Not a Crime, they speak of the Computer Frauds and Abuse Act, and I'm thinking of, so for OSINT, it's open source. So, but can you think of a use where like this could actually be criminally used against you for doing the practice?
Yeah, I mean, you can, all of these skills can be used for cyber stalking, which is very, very illegal. And why I mentioned in the beginning, please don't stalk anybody and use any of this data to cyber stalk or harass anybody. Because it could definitely be used that way. And then, I mean, just the SOC account creation is often used by actors, by threat actors, to communicate back and forth. They'll create fake accounts.
So one thing I'm thinking, coming from your perspective, if you had to try to teach someone to kind of start kind of boosting their security to reduce their OSINT, what are some of the specific things that you come across so often that you're like, this is just super easy to close down, but not reduce your ability to access your accounts?
Yeah, so, well, the first thing you want to start with is what's out there. And the best way to do that is to Google yourself. And just start tearing things through. Throw your usernames into SpiderFoot, let them run searches, see what comes back. Throw your usernames into Google, see what comes back. Throw your usernames into intellex.io, see what comes back. And from there, you can start to clean things up. The reality of it is, once the information is on the internet, the information is on the internet. There's, you know, if someone's determined to get it, they're going to get it. With public records, you're kind of out of luck. There's not a whole lot you can do to control public records. And that's scary. Like, I can look up the loan on my neighbor's house. Like, why would I need to know that information? That's creepy. But you can. So you just kind of have to be aware that that information is out there too, and know that someone could use it maliciously. And just being aware that it's there is helpful.
So sometimes they say when you go into information security, since you said you've most recently done OSINT more on a recent scale, and I remember when I started looking into security myself, one of my friends was like, watch out, it's a book you can't close, and it's pictures that you can't forget. And and so when you went into OSINT, what was the kind of the factor into it that made you go, oh, I've learned so much and I can't forget this, and this is kind of terrifying me?
I don't think I ever had that moment where I was like, this is terrifying. I just was always really fascinated by it. And that comes back to my, like, I'm just generally fascinated by people. I think we've talked about that before. I'm just generally fascinated by people. And so watching their digital footprints on the internet is just fascinating for me. It's not really creepy, but I really like it. So I don't think I ever had that moment where I was like, oh my God, this is terrifying. I think I had moments where you just kind of accept this is reality, that all of your information is out there and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But just be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, this is like a positive thing. Like, I definitely am looking at OSINT. Like, I always looked at it like, this is really important and I really should get into this even further. But then, like, too, like myself, I have a small little kid and I'm thinking when he gets older, I'm just like, I'm going to have to figure out how to, like, because I'm trying to teach him now how to, like, understand security and lock down his life. But he's, like, going on 5 and he's like, all right, there's a transformer. I don't know what you're talking about, man. And it's like, we'll get that kid.
Well, but they already have digital footprints. Think about it. Like, they've got, you know, YouTube Kids, and they're on there, and there's metrics being collected about them. They've got tablets. They've, you know, everything you order for them off Amazon, and all, like, they've already got digital footprints. My son has had a digital footprint since he was like 6 months old, because he registered on Babies R Us or whatever for the, you know, whatever the hell it is.
I know that it's when you said YouTube Kids, like, oh shit, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, my kid, Leapfrog learning pads. They all have accounts. And so I just make fake ones.
I wish I'd have been as smart at the time. I don't know what. I must have been. I just did the kind of lazy thing. I'm just like, oh, I'm super secure. I'll put the 3 letters of your first name. No.
But it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of information that's out there, especially about these younger generations that came up in the digital world. They've had a digital footprint since they could breathe.
Yeah, it's very exciting about the future going for now. Like 2030, it's just sped up faster. Like,
Yeah.
So when you use, let's say, OSINT for a positive use, can you see a situation where there could be a malicious blowback, even though you didn't mean to have a blowback on it?
Well, so I've used OSINT at work before, and people don't, until they see me do it, they don't quite understand what it is that I can do. And I've scared a lot of people. I had a malicious email, and it took me 5 minutes to track them to their house. And my coworker was like, "You're really, really creepy. Please don't ever do that to me." And then there was like some trust lost there. So I mean, there's that. And then if you're not careful, when you're doing OSINT investigations, there is the potential for those things to blow back on you. You know, I'm looking for missing children, and they could be abducted, they could be trafficked, and it could be anybody from a friend of the family to a cartel. I have no idea who I'm dealing with, and you generally don't know. And so you have to be really careful about covering your tracks, because, you know, it's funny, my husband and I had a conversation the other day, and he was like, "Well, can't you just get like a SIM card for your cell phone and just use your same cell phone for doing OSINT?" And I was like, "No, because the IMEI is the same." And he's like, "Well, right. How are people going to know that?" I'm like, "I don't know where these people work that are trafficking children."
Right, dude, seriously. Yeah. And it's a business for them, and they don't want you in the way. Oh,
yeah,
man.
So you have to be careful.
Yeah, that's that shivers. So that's what I was thinking, like, okay, so there's an opportunity here, right? So with volunteering with OSINT, can you think of any organizations that you'd recommend where it might be a good benefit or good connector for others to consider? Either learning OSINT and then actually applying it in a good way?
Yep, there's Trace Labs, and they have a ton of training. They have CTFs that are happening all the time now. They also have a monthly ongoing investigation that they run through a Trello board, and I definitely recommend checking that out and getting involved in that. People always check the answers, so obviously make sure you're confident in your answer before you submit it, but if it's wrong, someone will generally catch it. And start with the CTFs, because if you get something wrong there, you just don't get a flag. Not a big deal. And NCPTF is a really amazing organization, and they work with law enforcement. It's a little bit more involved than a Trace Labs CTF, because you're working directly with law enforcement to augment missing children and missing persons cases.
Okay. Yeah. So you've done both of those so far?
Yep.
Oh,
I just onboarded with NCTPF like last week.
Oh, that's exciting. That's so cool. That's so fun. I love it. Yeah, that's fun. So out of all your OSINT experiences thus far, what has been your most favorite?
You know, I have to say it was the first one that I did was so much fun. Because I do have a little kid, I don't get a lot of time in the CTFs unless they're like remote and I have to go somewhere, then I don't bring the kid. I'll usually get like 20 minutes or an hour or maybe 2 hours, and then he's interrupting me. So since COVID, I haven't done very well at the CTFs. I've done them, but I haven't scored very well. And one of the first ones that I did, I had a ton of fun. I did it with a friend of mine. I had no idea what I was doing. The Buscador site had just shut down the day before, so like I had no resources. I did half of it from my cell phone, and we came in 7th place, and it was just so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's very adaptive, man. Like especially with like a small screen, which you're not used to. You're just like, I'm used to this one environment. Oh, this well.
Yeah.
On the fly. That's awesome. Let's see. We're coming up to the hour. And so I wanted to make sure that you didn't have to go over an hour, because I don't want to take all your time today. I mean, I definitely would, but you know, I got to be respectful. Is there anything else you would like to add for the audience?
I think the biggest takeaway that I'd like to leave everybody with is that this is for anybody who wants to get involved in it. You don't have to be in InfoSec if you're not in InfoSec and this sounds interesting to you and it's something that you want to do. We have people who are accountants that come do stuff like this. People who are in sales come do stuff like this. You can literally, if you can Google, you can do this. It's a skill, and it's challenging, but it's not something that can't be learned. And if you want to do it, then do it. If you want to be here, then you belong. Don't let your fears stop you from doing it, or, you know, your intimidations about technology stop you from doing it.
That's awesome. Well, I want to just say thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for coming and providing this presentation to misec. We will put this on YouTube. Everybody in the audience, we will definitely get you those links. We'll also give you those opportunities for those volunteer opportunities. And definitely, like she's shared, Siobhan explained, this is a really fun thing. This is a great threshold. You don't have to be exactly in InfoSec to do this, and you can actually just participate yourself. And you should, because there's a lot of very positive things you can do through this. All right, well, thank you, Siobhan. I appreciate your time tonight. I'm just gonna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.